You're listening to Classic 107. My name's Neil Coligan. This show is Jazz After 9. I'm very glad on this Monday night to have two guests in studio who are going to be performing tomorrow night at the Franco-Manitobain Center in St. Boniface. It's part of the Mardi Jazz series, and the band is Peripheral Vision. They have a new album out called Sheer Tyranny of Will. It's their third album. The co-leaders of that band, Michael Herring, who is a bass player, Don Scott, who plays guitar, are with me in studio. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hi there.
Thanks a lot for having us.
Now, this band that you put together a few years ago, given that this is now your third release, what was the idea behind your project?
Well, I guess the project came together. Michael had his own band, which was a sextet, and I had my own band, which was a quartet, and we shared a lot of the same members, and we decided that it would be a cool idea to put our heads together and make a unified band, and we wrote half of the music each, and it's been a lot of fun since 2008. Now,
are both of you both from the Toronto area, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So in that kind of scene, I would imagine there's a lot of opportunities to play in different setups. And what made you decide, especially in this band, that say like with the guitar is sort of like the main driver of a lot of the rhythm there, that you're going to sort of explore one way or the other? This is not a mainstream release, at least I can say it that way.
The goal of this band was to have a working band, to have music that was put together and workshopped by the group. Although it's composed by Don and me, we really worked this music out together. So we were looking for, the interpersonal side, that how can this music work improvisatorily, if that's a word, and how could we shape the music together. So it was about having a group, more about the people than the instruments at the start. Like, drummer Nick Fraser was in both me and Don's bands before, and then we had this idea of auditioning a whole bunch of people, maybe even trying out different people on different tours. And then we played one gig with our saxophonist Trevor Hogg. That was our first gig, and then we went, yes. And it's about, everyone's easygoing. We love to hang out together. Some bands don't hang out together after the show. We hang out all the time. It's really fun. And then musically, that means the band lifts, I think, because of how well it gets together. And then I think both the guitar and the driving it, I think of the band actually as being quite even. All the different instruments drive it. And I think, like you said, you talked about the guitar driving it rhythmically. I think rhythm is one of the most important things about Peripheral Vision. And that rhythm, I think, makes it, even though it is challenging music sometimes, I think the rhythmic side of it makes it accessible to people. People can enjoy it. People can tap their foot along and have, I think, a good time, even if they don't engage with the more, modern aspects of the music.
Yeah, but we're not getting, say, if somebody's thinking about jazz, sometimes they're thinking about the, standard approach to it where, there's a familiar melody, you make the statement, then you go off into all the improv, and then perhaps you revisit the melody, and then we're done, right?
Right.
You guys are original composers. You're all workshopping all of this together. So was there something in your mind that said, we're going to keep certain limits, or did you say at some point we can just go as far as we want?
Well, we definitely go as far as we want. We like to call ourselves a no-holds-barred band. And, between Michael and I, we enjoy exploring different formats for shaping a piece of music, so we don't always want to have the statement and the improv and then another statement. Sometimes we go through, lately we've been calling it a jazz odyssey, where we our forms are, playing different sections and then going back and improvising over those different sections or somehow related to the material. And, varying degrees of playing the material tightly or loosely and exploring rhythm and all that.
So naturally enough, when you have Trevor there on the saxophone, is there sort of like an idea already ahead of that to say, Trev, we'd really like you to come in these parts, or is it just sort of like where you feel it's important to come in?
There's aspects of both. I think a lot of the forms, although we decided them collectively, they're set a lot of the time. So this section is the saxophone solo. But because it's improvising in nature in the accompaniment, everyone comes and goes and things come in and come out as we all please.
Mm-hmm. And over the course of a tour, we like to really mix things up, and night after night, the versions are very different, and someone might just take the reins at some point and drive the song in a different direction. So that's also very fresh and exciting.
Which definitely can be exciting, because sometimes I'm certain at some point you're kind of all looking at each other and say, oh, this is where we're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or where are we?
No, naturally enough, as two guys bursting with ideas because you want to compose these things. Is there also this, occasional temptation to say, well, maybe we should also do something where we're taking apart something like a standard or something like that? Have you done that before?
We've done a bit of that. I know Michael for sure has written a few pieces that were loosely based around a standard. But definitely taken apart and masked to the point that you wouldn't recognize where it came from. So that's a fun challenge. Maybe you can speak to that.
Well, just the other night we actually played a version of Body and Soul as an encore. So we're definitely coming out of the jazz language and the jazz tradition. But when we were forming this band, we had a bit of an argument, which we don't argue that often, but about whether we should play cover material, like either jazz standards or a lot of the current modern jazz bands are playing pop covers as jazz tunes. Mm-hmm. And I just felt like, given how much each of us write and that you have a limited amount of time in a night, the real goal of this band is to play our own music. So we focus more on playing our own stuff. But on this album, my tune, Ill-Conceived Plan, it's like a jazz tune. I sort of wrote it modeled on Bolivia, where there's a vamp that happens for 8 bars, and then there's a tune that happens for 8 bars. Don's tune, Charleston Heston, although it sounds like it's modern or like it's got this like a complicated form, actually once we get into the solos it kind of sneaks into a much more normal jazz form that we play on.
And that's a head scratcher for me. I've been wanting to ask you why you called that tune Charleston
Heston.
Yeah.
Well, I think that phrase just popped into my head at some point, thinking that it's a fun play on Charlton Heston.
Yeah.
And the Charleston.
Right.
So I think that I started writing the piece with some idea of the Charleston in my head, although it's totally messed up with different time signatures and doesn't sound like you would expect a Charleston. But it's in there. It's buried.
Okay. I mean, naturally enough, my grandmother used to dance the Charleston, so I kept going, I don't think I hear it here.
No, you'd have to do it, but you'd have to be like sort of a little limp every bar.
Yeah, definitely.
And it might work out.
Yeah. So for the show that's coming up, what can we expect?
Well, we're going to play some material from our new record, Sheer Tyranny of Will, of course, and we're going to play a bunch of we're going to play a bunch of new music that this record is out now, so of course we have a whole new body of work that we're preparing to record in the spring. We'll be touring in Europe in April, and then probably after that we'll hit the studio again. So it'll be a mix of tunes from the album and some brand new stuff as well. And I think there's 3 sets worth of music to hear us.
Yeah,
okay.
For $5 you're going to get the most tunes we're going to play on the whole tour, I think, tonight.
That's true.
Tomorrow night,
Yeah, there is 3 sets involved with the Franco's.
So it's going to be fun.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you can't beat the price, obviously. One of the things I noticed from one of the tunes, this was back in 2012. This was an award winner for you, Backbone, as part of the Montreal organization there. Tell me a little bit about that tune.
Well, I guess in the lead up to before we were recording this album, we were in the same situation where we had an album out and a whole bunch of new tunes, and then we got invited to perform at the Montreal Festival and be part of their competition for the Galaxy Rising Star Award. And I guess their jury selected the piece Backbone to be the best composition in that competition. So we were very honored to get that award, and it's been great for the band.
I would have well imagined, yeah. Was that your first time at Montreal, or?
Yes.
So not bad for being your first time out, eh? Just briefly about the Toronto scene. Right now, I mean, we play a lot of artists out of Toronto right now. Would you say it's a healthy scene?
Yeah, big time. I think there's a generation of people, we're in our mid-late 30s, and I think there's a really strong generation of people like us, who are working really hard at it, and people that are younger than us, like in their 20s. Like we're talking about recent Juno nominees from last year. Alison Au is working really hard and touring. Ernesto Cervini is doing a lot of stuff with a couple different groups and touring a lot. And, Nick Fraser, our drummer, has a lot of his own projects. He's on the road a lot. Lena Alamano, trumpet player. So, I mean, there's a really healthy scene of people who are, 25 to 45 that are doing a lot of interesting and different things. And while jazz doesn't make a lot of money, and especially in Toronto, a lot of the gigs don't pay a lot, there are quite a few opportunities to play right now. And I think a real sharing going on, both in terms of people coming out and supporting each other. There's a lot of musicians out watching gigs and watching each other, and and in terms of playing with each other. And I think it's a real vibrant, growing scene right now. It's a good time to be playing jazz in Toronto for sure.
Okay, well, I thank you very much for stopping by tonight, and I wish you all the best with your show, not only tomorrow night, but of course the rest of your tour that's going to take in Eastern Canada. We're going to end off tonight with a track from Peripheral Vision, the one we were just speaking about, called Backbone, the award winner from Montreal. This is Peripheral Vision. Don, and of course, Michael, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us on.
You're listening to Jazz After 9.